All right, let's hear it for Guillaume.
Okay. So hello everybody. So my name is Guillaume Manzano. So I am an iOS developer here at Umain. It's been now a bit more than 6 years. And today, go for it.
Yes, there we go.
Hello, better?
Yep.
Okay, good. And today we will explore the capability of skip. So, what is skip? So skip was founded in 2023. And I think the best way to describe it is to use their own definition, which is skip is a tool to develop genuine native application for the iPhone and Android using Swift. So for us, iOS devs. Perfect. So how does it work? You work in Xcode, writing in Swift and Swift UI, and as usual. And skip Xcode plugin handles the Android version automatically. So how does this work a bit behind the scene? We can see that. So when you're initializing a project in Skip, you can choose to go in two different ways. The first way is native. Well, we're going to go with like a bit architectural stuff. So what we can see here when we're building a project in Skip, with Skip, is that all this part of the screen, the iOS part, is the normal way, as we always do. So we're going to have like Xcode that's going to compile with Swift to like compile Swift UI for our content.o. So everything that is behind the scene for Swift is the same. It's going to compile a model, and it's going to link with Swift Project Manager dependency and wrap it up into our API package. Now start the whole magic with the native one, which is the Android part. So the Android part, as we can see, we have our view model Swift, and it's going to use a skip Android toolchain to basically convert it into a .o file and create like a library of it with like a .so, and it's going to compile our view model. Here on this part of the screen, on the transpile Kotlin code, it's just going to transpile it into Jetpack Compose, using Jetpack Compose component into our KT view. And after that, they're going to have like some skip views that's going to do the bridge between like this SO and like the content class. They wrap everything, they shake it up, and you have your APK package, basically. So that's for the native part. We're going to go for the transpile. Hello? Yeah, here. The transpile way to do the thing. I'm sorry, the microphone is just dropping a bit. So, what is transpilation? Transpilation is a process of converting one computer language into another language with like a similar level of abstraction. So, skip transpile mode converts your Swift code into the equivalent in Kotlin for running Android. So how does it do that? With the transpile mode, here we can see he's going to use the skip transpiler and convert directly the view model into a KT1, into a KT file. This part is the same, stays the same. So this is the difference between transpile and native mode. So what is the primary benefit of this transpile mode? This transpile mode, the main benefit is that you're always going to have your Kotlin code. So your Kotlin code is going to be created, and you have it on your computer. Because your Swift code is converted to Kotlin, you can directly call all the Kotlin API, as we can see on this graph. Unlike native mode that we saw before, native mode needed a bridge, like this skip fuse bridge, in order to communicate between the two. Here, you can just call Kotlin API directly. You have a few advantages of that. First, ejectability. Because you have your Kotlin code, it's always here, and even if in the worst case scenario skip died, not die, but disappear, like you will always have your app. The other advantage to do transpile is the app size. Your app size will be a bit slimmer than in native mode because it doesn't need to have all the libraries that it composes. And one more point I will say is that using SwiftUI native mode is still a work in progress. So themselves, they say, please use transpile. So this is what we're going to focus a bit more into it. They're still working on it, so they say that moving from transpile to a native will be something that will be possible to achieve in the future, and pretty easily. So here, just to come back, how does this transpiler, this magic here, happen? It is going to use something called skip module. So these modules are going to convert our Swift code into Kotlin code. And we can see here that we have many modules that already have been created by Skip, like Skip unit for all your testers. That's going to convert your Swift test into Kotlin test. Sorry. You have Skip foundation if you need to use like all your primitive like data, date. You have all the networking, URL session, date formatter, localization that we can look also a bit on the demo, and notification center. We have a smaller one like Motion, which is basically Lottie, but is used preferably now, and Skip UI. Skip UI is a big chunk, so we will be looking a bit deeper into it. First, far away, after we'll go dig. How does this work? It's a simplification of the first schema, of the first diagram that you saw. You have your Swift UI source, basic. You want to build in iOS interface. You're just following the normal flow that you're doing right now on Xcode. If you're going to build in Kotlin, it's going to use one of these modules, and it's going to, based on what it needs, and transpile the code and convert it into Kotlin source. After that, you're able to build it with Android Studio, and you have your native Android interface. What Skip use under the hood is Jetpack Compose. Yeah, so that's about how Skip module works. And we will pass now regarding the demo. So, sorry, I'm just gonna up, and this one's gonna go here. So, for this demo, what we're gonna do is we're gonna check how to install quickly a Skip project, and we're gonna dig a tiny bit more into certain links that could be useful for you if you're looking into developing in Swift. So let me find here. So we're gonna have, no spoilers. Here we have our getting started. Up. That we're gonna put here. Up. Sorry. Okay, and we're gonna need so a little website, up, and a terminal. Up. Great. And here is our terminal. Great. So getting started. Really easy. Brew install as if we were installing any kind of libraries. I already have it in my computer, so some of them will go a bit quicker, like this one. Already installed, that's done. Second step is a checkup. So what checkup gonna do, it's gonna go and verify that you have everything you need, and if you don't have it, it's gonna download it. So your Android Studio, that if you need it, the dependency, Swift version, verifying that you have everything you need. This can take 5 to 10 minutes, so due to the length of the presentation, we're not gonna run it. It's already on my computer, and it's already here. So just run skip checkup. You can install the SDK, skip Android SDK. I do also have it, so it's gonna be a few minutes. If you don't, like 3-4 minutes. So in total, in 10 minutes, you should have most of the thing installed, and you can just create your application. So for creating your application, we can see skip init. We're passing the bundle ID, and we're passing the project name and the app name. And it's going to automatically generate all the files that we need. While generating it, now they added a new support also for Fastlane. So if we put on the parameter / Fastlane, it's automatically going to create all the files that you need for Android and iOS. So it's a pretty cool feature that they released in December, if I'm right. So here, generating the project, and done. Oop. You can just open it in the Finder. And here we can see, am I on the right folder? I think I'm on the right folder if everything goes well. And here we have a Darwin folder with Xcode. So it's going to fetch the libraries that you need. So it's using Swift Packet Manager, automatically going to initialize everything you need. And with finished pooling, we are almost good to go. Up. One thing that's going to be useful is, next step, because you want it to be running also on Android, you're going to need to open Android Studio. So we have our Android Studio, and you're going to need your emulator. So here, the virtual device manager. You need to create one if you don't have one. Otherwise, you can just start a new emulator. Good. We can close it. We don't need it anymore. I'm just going to drag it in. And here we have our beautiful emulator. In here, we select the iPhone that we want to build in. Let's see. Sorry, I'm just going to check the iPhone 6 Plus. Great. Let's go for this one. We build. What we're going to be able to see in the second. Oops. So first time it's taking a bit of time, but we're almost there. Hello. Oh, soon to happen. I actually opened it manually, which was maybe not a good idea, but no, good. Build setup, it's here. Let's see the emulator, it didn't start it. See, it's starting it by itself, perfect. Running app name, Xcode. And we can see that we have the project running on both devices. So here, when you're doing the init, you're having a really basic project. They just give you a few lists, like of how this will look like. You can see in both. So what we're going to do, we're now going to go and look a bit at what's happened under the hood. So we have this plugin here if we decide to look at it a bit more in detail, we're going to be able to see. Let me open iOS, the source. We're going to check our view model. Our view model or content view. Let's, which one? This one. We're going to open a new editor and we're going to look for our view model. And here we can see that we have a view model.kt. This is the transpilation, just converting this code into this code. Good question. I don't have my keyboard. What's up? How do you do that again from here? Command plus. Perfect. Here, better? No problem. So, imagine we want to modify this. Let's say when we're initializing this, we just want a logger who's going to say, hey, please log a message, like item init, for example. What it's going to do the next time I'm going to compile, it's going to convert it. Sorry, it's a bit of a spoiler. So we here, if we look in here, item init, we can see that it converted the logger. So yeah, under the hood, using all these different modules, and we're going to have a bit more. Oops. Why is this one going here? Perfect. We're going to look a bit more about it. So we talk about, this is a playground. So what's happening is there is, sorry. So what's happening? It's a good question. So since we're using Swift, they're using like their own syntax. So it's easy for them to after use like the Swift tools in order to parse the code. So it's possible for them to read it and interpret it. Following that, they're using a parser in order to like be able to convert this code. Yeah, we can see that some of them have direct one-to-one to Kotlin. So this is Playground. This is like part of their website. You can see. If you want to look at the class, for example, you transpile it. You see that it's going to take for this class like 2 milliseconds to like transfer it. It's have a direct one-to-one with Kotlin, which is going to be a class. But some of them doesn't actually, and this is where it can get a bit more complicated. So, oops, sorry for this. So this is when it gets a bit more complicated. For example, structures. Like Kotlin doesn't have true value type. So they had to re-implement the way how structures work in SwiftUI with like mutables and things like this. So if we take up, we can see that they had to re-implement how structures works. But they do have a lot of one-to-one, and part of the tools that they already converted, you have hashables, you have executable, async await for like a core routine. So they do have a lot that is already there. We're just going to talk quickly about the modules. We were talking earlier about SkipUI. SkipUI, one of the good things on their module is you can have what is currently being supported. So you can see everything that already have been created into these modules. So, and where they are at. Another small thing about SkipUI that could be interesting, just so you see a bit what happened under the hood with Jetpack Compose. If we look at SwiftUI, SkipUI library, we can see that they have already a lot of component, button, and things that are implemented. We can look into, for example, let's say controls, like in the control, like the toggle. An equivalent of the toggle in Android and in Compose will be a switch, and they do have a switch. So like this is how they transpile the code with Android. And that's, I think, that's going to be it for the demo. I think we're going to be able to go back to, sorry for that. Here we are, talking a bit about the pros and cons of Skip UI. So Skip, as I mentioned, was like started in 2023. So it's relatively still a young company. It's like 2 years old. Like the first version, the 1.0 version that like people started to use is like on August 14, 2024. So it's 7 months old. So still very young. Even so, it's backed up by like 2 really good developers. And like one of them was like tech lead at Twitter and like spent 10 years there. So they do have a really good level and they're pretty active on it. So one thing that is like you should be avoiding with Skip is avoid specific like Wear OS or like very like Android heavy things like Jetpack Compose only API. Like avoid this and avoid games. I think it's kind of the same for a lot of cross-platform, but like the goal of this is really business productivity apps. Like you will have like a restaurant or like for ordering or something like this, like something more generic. The advantages of Skip is pretty, as you saw, plug and play. Like 4 lines, 4 command line, and basically you have a project that is running and you can start to code on both platforms. Really easy install. It's native code. So Jetpack Compose, you have your Kotlin code with you in case of. You can always like debug it. And it can be good and used on the scenario, for example, where you don't have any Android developers and you're just a small iOS team, or like you're an independent person, like you would like also to have your Android and you don't want to learn like the other cross-platform languages, you don't want to learn Dart, you don't want to learn this, but you can still be with Swift UI. So yeah, in conclusion, use Skip if you want to share Swift business logic across iOS and Android. If you need to, for example, you need a fast Android application as an expansion of your existing iOS app, or if you want to perform like closed native rather than using Flutter or React Native. And that's about it. Thank you, everybody. Is there any question, please? Oh, hello. Hello. Yes?
I'm German, I can talk loud enough that everyone is hearing. How do you compare this to Kotlin multi-platform approach?
Well, to be honest, I never tried to do UI with Kotlin multi-platform. We do use Kotlin multi-platform inside our project in Umain, but we use it more for business logic and like data layering. So I don't really have an example of how, I don't know how it's act UI-wise with Kotlin. I know that on the way that we use it, we use native UI view, native Swift UI views, and all the back. Basically, we just generate a view model, and like the view model that Kotlin multi-platform have generated us, this is what we use for our iOS app, which is a bit of a different approach because the views are still native. Like you still need to do both of the views in Android and iOS. Where here you just do the Swift UI one, and these guys at Skip generously do transform it into Compose.
With the advantage that you could design it a little bit more Android-like or iOS-like on each.
Yeah, you could. Thank you. Another question. Hey, 3 more questions. Let's see.
Hello.
Hello.
Thanks for nice talk. 2 questions. The first one is related to transpilation of Swift controls. You demonstrated several examples. At the same time, are they transpiling controls from Swift UI to, I don't know, to Android UI, or is it about just code?
Yeah, they really they're using the Jetpack Compose component. So as we saw on this one, they're using Jetpack Compose on the background. They're not recreating a new custom object. Is that your question? I'm sorry. Maybe I got it completely wrong. Yeah.
So that's no correlation between Swift UI and also UI
No.
library in Android.
No, there is no correlation. They're using a Jetpack Compose component fully.
Also, okay, thanks. And another question is about how quickly are they catching up with new language-specific features of Swift? So let's say if some new property wrapper is introduced, is it possible to get a transpilation? Or
that's a really good question. Since they're pretty new and they're a small team, I would say that they've been working really hard. But no, the job that they did in 1 year have been basically catching up with what there is today. So I cannot really tell you. They do have observables, they do have main actors, they do have all of these things that we're using, actors and everything that we're using in today's coding. It's available right now. So it took the approach of getting what is currently being used, and the support that they have for UIKit is smaller than what they have for Swift UI, basically. And I think they intend to try to keep it like this and keep getting with it.
Thanks.
Any more questions? I was just wondering how hard it is to migrate or implement the existing project in Swift with a skip. Is it as easy as just a script or?
Unfortunately, I never tried it. They say it's really easy. This is what I can tell you. I'm not gonna lie by telling you I know it's gonna work super well. I know that they have a full page of documentation about how easy it is, but I never experimented. So it should be a few command lines and it should work.
It should.
Yeah, it should. Finger crossed.
So Mohana stole one of my questions, but the question I have is what's the minimum deployment target for iOS, and can you target different OS versions of Android as well?
Yeah, you should be able to target it different ones. The exact one that you have, it's a good question. Because they do have a whole system of dependency, as you can see with the YAML file. But not being an iOS developer main, I'm unsure about that one, I'll be honest. Yeah, this is a localization that we were talking earlier. Skip.yml.
Maybe I can rephrase the question.
Yeah,
which Swift UI version is Skip supporting?
That's a good question. I don't have the original one.
All right. Then it's something for us to look up.
Yeah, definitely. And for me too. I should have looked that up before the presentation for sure.
So my question is, do you know if they're using some sort of source control or anything like Git under the hood when it's converted to Android? So if you iterate on the Android code, and then you change something in Swift, and then you compile the next code,
No.
you get conflicts that you could resolve, so you could basically iterate on both.
No, it's a one way only, really. It's not both way. It's not gonna look into Android. You do have a way to directly write your code with they have an example in here of how you can write directly in Kotlin, with Compose inside your code. And here, let me check that on the content view. You do have a way here, for example, where they have this Compose view, which allows you to directly use Jetpack Compose and Material in order to code your things. But that's really the way. You're going to Swift, from Swift to Android, not on the way back at the moment. Yeah. And you basically can use everything. You can use Maps, Google Maps, and everything in here. That's pretty practical. You just have to add your dependency in the YAML file, and you're good. Other questions? Oh, did you respond?
How does the dependency works? If there is a Android-specific dependency and this type of things, or not? Is that taking all the
No, they should not actually. Like this is with the compose one that we saw earlier, you can define exactly what dependency you want. This is something that you can see more on the example. Do I have it here? I'll try to find it for you. On the GitHub. They have an exact example of, no, not this one. Let me open it on mine first. They have an example, basically, you can add the dependency that you want to have on your Android directly into your, in here. And it will just, like, bring these ones. So if you're using Maps, for example, Google Maps, like it's not going to try to convert Swift, Google Maps and stuff like this. It's going to use the Android one.
But you're coding the Swift
Yep.
with the connection to that.
Well, you're using basically what's this content view. And this content view is basically just a wrapper. And you can put everything, every compose or like Kotlin library that you would like to put in it.
Cool.
Okay, maybe the last question because we are a little bit behind the change.
It's not a question, but iOS 16 and Android 10.
Yeah, thank you. Perfect.
Thank you. Good. Now we are having 15 minutes break where we can discuss how we finally can improve Android apps using beautiful Swift. And let's get back in 15 minutes.
Really good job, my dude. Really good.
Hi.